The following program was produced by Bethlehem Steel.
The winter of '77 has been tough all over. It even snowed in Miami. But the winter's heaviest blows have fallen in western New York State, and the biggest blast of all hit on Friday, January 28th. Buffalo, Lackawanna, and other Lake Erie communities had their worst blizzard in history. 17 hours of 60-mile-per-hour winds, sub-zero temperatures, and blinding snow. 4 more days of storms followed. When it was over, western New York was a major disaster area, buried in 20-foot snowdrifts. And through it all, Bethlehem employees struggled to save the Lackawanna plant.
Conditions were very bad. You couldn't see at least 10 feet in front of you. You couldn't see anything.
It was cold, yeah, and you couldn't see nothing. It was blowing.
It was a blizzard. It was a wall of white snow. You couldn't see anything.
You couldn't survive 5 minutes in the conditions that we operated in.
People were scared. You could walk 50 yards in that blizzard and be afraid not to get back where you started from, even if you knew where you were. You couldn't see an arm's length away from you, and the wind was so cold that if you didn't have something over your mouth and your nose would freeze shut.
Hundreds of Bethlehem employees fought the blizzard of '77 at the Lackawanna plant. Some were there when the storm hit and didn't get home for days. They worked double and triple shifts, grabbed a nap, and came back for more. They fought to save their plant and their jobs.
Railroad, steel making, people from the mills that are normally considered high-paying, high-class jobs were out with shovels and picks opening switches up, because they knew that if we didn't get the primary side started, they were out of a job like everybody else was. And if this place would have gone down, you wouldn't have dug it out till spring.
The key to keeping the plant going was its gas supply, plus the coke ovens and blast furnaces. Without an adequate gas supply, the coke ovens and blast furnaces could have gone down, with disastrous results.
Well, our gas pressure was critical on several occasions at the coke ovens and at the blast furnaces. If we had lost the gas systems, we could have seriously damaged the coke ovens, and we could have had our 3 blast furnaces offline. Losing the blast furnaces would have resulted in at least 2 blast furnace relines, which would have taken 6 to 8 months. Damage to the coke ovens could have been virtually irreparable, short of completely rebuilding a battery.
With no coke ovens to fuel the blast furnaces and no blast furnaces to make iron, there would have been no steel made at the Lackawanna plant and no jobs for 11,000 employees. At the coke ovens, it was a vicious circle. The ovens demand gas for underfiring to keep the batteries hot. But they provide most of the gas themselves through their normal operations of turning coal into coke. And the blizzard had slowed operations to the point where the ovens could barely generate the gas they needed to survive.
We had high winds, up to 60 miles an hour. We had low temperatures. The temperature fell from about 28 degrees down to 4 above. And we had very heavy snow, very heavy blizzard conditions. We can operate fairly well with any one of these conditions, but the combination of all 3 made the operation impossible.
Coke oven equipment was stalled in place by ice and drifted snow. When the equipment doesn't run, the hot coke doesn't get pushed out of the ovens, no coal is charged into the ovens, and no gas is produced.
All the employees, hourly and supervisory, did an incredible job. They never stopped trying, they never quit. They kept trying to get the machines running.
Well, in a way of speaking, I kind of enjoyed it. There's quite a few of the guys out here, and they had us food, coffee. We'd take breaks, or something was breaking down, we'd grab some salt, put on the tracks, get the machines and things going. Sometime they wouldn't go, we'd be back in the lunchroom, which was warm, and I kind of enjoyed it.
They managed to get just enough coke pushed and ovens charged so that we never did run out of gas.
Every little bit of coke oven gas and blast furnace gas was crucial to the fuel department, which worked hand in hand with the coke oven and blast furnace departments to balance the critical gas pressure. A natural gas shortage had cut the plant's allocation by 50%, making the fuel department's job even tougher.
The problem that we have here, we have combustible mixtures in the gas systems in these two operating departments. And if air is allowed to enter into these systems, we would have severe explosions that would cripple the plant for some time to come and result in costly repairs and that type of thing.
The blast furnace department had been fighting an up and down battle against snowstorms throughout the month of January. They were trying to get back up to a full three-furnace operation when the big one hit.
And the big one put us flat down in a matter of an hour and a half. All furnaces off, boilers sealed off. We ended up with 3 furnaces flat down on fan, all the boilers sealed off. No way to get to the pits, no way to get to the BOF. We trapped 9 or 10 ladles full of iron somewhere between here and the BOF and here in the pit. It just sat there and froze solid.
The storm was so sudden and so severe that the blast furnace department couldn't bank the furnaces to shut them down. At the same time, the storm blocked railroad tracks and froze switches. Ladle cars full of molten iron couldn't get from the blast furnace to the BOF or to the pits near the lake where hot metal could be dumped on the ground and reclaimed later. The furnaces were fanned with just enough blast to maintain a slight pressure inside the furnaces, maintain the gas system, and keep from chilling the hearth.
The furnaces, some furnaces that fanned for 33 to 36 hours, which is about 25 to 30 hours more than you'd have liked to fan them. We had no idea what harm we were doing to the furnaces and whether we'd be able to bring them on or not. But we had to try. We couldn't do any worse than shutting the place down that was already shut down. Furnaces have come out of it relatively good. We lucked out on that one too. There was a lot of luck, a lot of hard work by everybody. Foremen, men, women. We even had women in here. We had one woman trapped in here for about 30 hours. And she worked down the ore dock cleaning switches, salt and rails. So there was, at that time, there was no salary, hourly, union, non-union. Everybody was just out here busting their hump.
The plant services department bore the brunt of the snow removal effort. In the emergency, roads and parking lots became unimportant. The main thing was to protect the plant's primary operations. One of the critical pieces of track led to the beach, to the pits where the blast furnace iron could be dumped if it couldn't go to the BOF.
We knew that the ability of the blast furnaces to continue operating depended on our ability to keep this track open so that they could bring their subladles to the beach. The BOF was completely out of business and wasn't accepting any iron at all. And so we knew how vitally important this was, and when the storm came back on Sunday afternoon, we had gotten to the point where our bulldozer going up and down the track just couldn't push the snow any further. There was no place for the snow to go. So at that point we said we've got to send in a front-end loader, a rubber-tired loader. And when we got the thing in there, he got stuck. And so we sent a bulldozer in to rescue the loader, and then we sent a second bulldozer to rescue the loader and the first bulldozer. And by the time we got done on Sunday afternoon and evening, we had 5 pieces of equipment up here to try and get the stuck stuff out. We had 8 people all together up in here under these wild conditions. Of course, by then it was dark, and we were really discouraged.
Well, at the beginning, we were worried about our personal safety. But once you get into a job of that type and the dangers involved, you forget about your personal safety, see? The only thing you think about then is to accomplish what you've been sent out to do. and you worry about that when you get back.
But we got the track opened, but it was a battle because it kept drifting in. We had to keep machines on it continuously just to keep this one particular track open.
During the height of the blizzard, there were over 700 employees and storm refugees trapped in the plant's main office, plus over 2,000 employees in the plant itself working to save it. All of these people had to be fed, but the concession that normally supplies the in-plant restaurants was out of food.
They did the best they could, and they used up all the food they had, and they started getting food in. The following morning, we got a four-wheel drive Jeep. Got permission from management to go out and get food if we could get it. We stopped off at McDonald's and ordered 150 Egg McMuffins and 200 Big Macs. And we fed our people that morning with that food.
Meanwhile, the plant's General Services Division geared up to take on the feeding chores. The kitchen crew in the plant office normally handles just the cafeteria and dining rooms in that building. But during the storm, the crew prepared food for distribution throughout the plant. It was taken into the plant by four-wheel drive vehicle and snowmobile.
Well, in the beginning it started with sandwiches, and then we were trying to get them hot food over there. They were getting sort of sick of ham and cheese and cold cuts, and we had desserts. We had canned fruits we shipped over to them, soups, juices. We had any number of volunteers. People throughout the building here we had some supervisors, superintendents, washing pots and pans, peeling vegetables.
Some volunteers got to try out special recipes.
Special recipe is lining up the bread on the counter, slapping on the mustard and putting the Swiss cheese and ham together, wrapping them up.
To some employees, medicine was just as important as food. The plant medical and environmental control departments helped out.
People called the clinic and told us what their needs were, what medications they were on, and if they didn't know, we asked them to check with their doctor to find out what the medications were that they were getting. And once they identified what they needed, we tried to furnish it.
First of all, we went to OLB Hospital and picked up the medication, brought it back here to the clinic where it was put into envelopes, and then Bob and I delivered it out through the plant.
Well, in some locations, it was almost impossible. We went as far as we could with the four-wheel drive, and in a few instances we had to walk them in, and others we even had heavy equipment take it in from the gate, such as a payloader.
I think one of the things that could happen but did not happen here was that after working long hours under adverse conditions, people become fatigued. And when they're that fatigued, one expects a rash of serious accidents. Very fortunately, this didn't happen.
But what did happen during those long, fatiguing hours under adverse conditions was worth it. Quite simply, the plant was saved. It's impossible to show even a fraction of the people and departments who worked through the storm and afterwards. But as individuals and as a team, they were successful. They kept the coke ovens, blast furnaces, gas supply, and themselves intact through the snow emergency. And when the weather eased, they brought the plant's production facilities back online.
We came very nearly losing the plant. Our gas systems on the coke ovens and the blast furnaces were critical. But we made it, and I can't say enough for the individual effort of our employees and our supervisors, and the cooperation and teamwork of the South Buffalo Railroad, the fuel department, plant services, and our mechanical and electrical forces, and the balance of the departments in supporting our coke ovens, blast furnaces, and steel making was really remarkable. We're back to normal this week as far as the plant's concerned. We're ready for the next storm, but we're really looking for an early spring.